天哪，对方律师还没出手呢。
On the knowing receipt, you may wish to refer to paragraph 8 of the skeleton submission, because you said, in any case, the plaintiff can assert a proprietary claim against the defendant. This is the conclusion.
Yes, your lordship is correct.
Okay, my learned judge is asking you, to explain or to try to explain why you have first the argument based on a constructive trust, and then second, the defendant has a knowing receipt, and the relationship between the two arguments.
这个问题跨不过去。
A proprietary claim is based on first the constructive trust.
So my question is, knowing the receipt part of your pleaded case, can you argue that now?
这你就是你的师兄是吧？
12分钟，他自己的这第一个点还没有讲完。
Yeah, as I said, if you do not have a ready answer, you can leave that to the reply. Please
My lord.
proceed. Yeah.
The plaintiff has decided to not to proceed on the claim of no receipt.
哦，
他直接放弃了，
退了。
哇，这个好大胆的一个决定啊！
对，以退为进是吧？壮士断腕。
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, if that's your position, then please proceed.
有时候呢，有些我们的问题呢是比较尖锐，而有些问题实在是答不了呢，的确是可以放弃一些阵地。
蒋边这个年纪，坐在这扛着3位，也是有点力不从心，也能理解。
加油，调整心态，很棒啊！贴不稳住，情绪。
May I continue my submission?
Please.
漂亮，当断则断。
In this action, the plaintiff's claim is only against the defendant. Should the defendant intend to make any further claims based on the transfer of funds to other external parties, the defendant should have filed Order 16 rule and notice before the defense is filed. I'll move on my submission on the point that the defendant wasn't a bona fide purchaser for value. The relevant authority is Hong Kong Limited and Company Limited, HECF R306 of 2021. First, there was no purchase for value. The defendant didn't provide any value for the transfer of the sum. There was no valid contract between the fraudsters and the defendant. The defendant is acting in bad faith with notice. In the present case, we submit that the defendant has actual notice the existing proprietary rights. It was held by the court in that case that where the recipient
I believe
appreciates...
you understand you have 30 seconds left.
哎呦，哇哦！
还一共就半个小时，他们这一组可以说他还是有点紧张了。
As the defendant has actual notice of the plaintiff's proprietary rights in relation to the sum, the plaintiff concludes that the defendant's attempted invocation of the bona fide purchaser defense therefore must fail. The 1 million Hong Kong dollars was not the subject matter of the present action. The plaintiff is claiming the sum of $500,000 only.
激起了他的战斗欲，我发现。
对，
我要拼了！
My lord, these are the plaintiff's submissions on the claim of proprietary claim. May I now defer to my learned friend Mr. Hu to continue his case for the plaintiff?
Yes, please.
话他准备20分钟，我现在需要卡到13分钟。
胡明浩要减7分钟的词。
现在留给胡明浩的陈述时间有限，而且朱绰盈对于 constructive trust 的论述不够完善，原告方主打的论点就谨慎不当得力。
Good evening, Your Lordship. According to the Shanghai Science and Technology Industrial Cooperation Limited versus case at sections 67, On unjust enrichment, there are 4 questions to be answered. The first is, was the defendant enriched? The second is, was the enrichment at the plaintiff's expense? The third is, was the enrichment unjust? And the fourth is, are there any defenses applicable? We will address these 4 questions respectively.
他有经验，没事。
Beginning with the first question, we submit that the defendant was enriched. Enrichment requires the obtaining of a benefit. Here, according to paragraph 19, subparagraph 8 of the mooting brief, the defendant has obtained of a sum.
Before you go on, I understand that. But what I'm reading is that the defendant actually accepts that the defendant has been unjustly enriched. What is the point of talking about this again?
Yes, Your Lordship. In case that unjustly enriched is already a stipulation, we will move on to prove that their defense of change of position cannot be sustained.
Yes, perhaps focus on that.
Yes, thank you, Your Lordship. The change of position defense is not available to someone who has changed his position in bad faith or if the change of position was unlawful. We will address the bad faith issue and the illegality issue separately. Beginning with the bad faith issue, as the plaintiff has illustrated in section 15.2 of the skeleton. When one knows enough to have reasonable grounds for suspecting the money paid to him is subject to a claim of restitution by a third party, it would be sufficient to disqualify that defendant from the defense of change of position.
胡同学在气势上没有输，在这个陈词表现的方式，包括节奏，都还是可以的。
明浩很清晰思路
And in the present case, our defendant is aware that he transferred the money to Chen Hong, but then received the money from a different account, Chen Man. She was also aware that Chen Man was a fraud, and the total amount of fraud money has reached 2 million. In that case, the defendant was well aware that she was not the only defendant. Combine this fact with the other fact, the account that she received money from was actually different from the account that she transferred the money into. Our defendant has a reasonable ground to suspect that the fraudster has mistakenly transferred the money of other victims into the pocket of herself. Therefore, we submit that the defendant, because with the state of mind of bad faith, cannot rely on the defense of change of position. Turning to the last point, according to the PRC foreign exchange regulation, it is illegal for defendant to transfer her money into mainland without going through a qualified financial institution. And in the present case, because the defendant transferred the money to the mainland via a unauthorized institution, according to the Bank versus Pan, when the change of position itself directly violates the law, the change of position will be denied for illegality.
Time's up.
Thank you, Mr. Hu.
我就在想，我要是他妈妈，我得多骄傲。
这个带入的视角也是有点清奇，也是很奇怪。
我在想我儿子这样子是什么样子。
你会天哪！
是。Now we come to the counsel for the defendants to make their submissions, please.
May it please the tribunal. My name is Henry Lee, and I'm counsel for the defendant along with Sonny Young, who will also be appearing for the defendant. My lords, the defendant asks the tribunal to dismiss the plaintiff's respective claims for the following reasons. It is my respectful submission that the plaintiff's respective claims of propriety claim and restitution are tainted with illegality. And the starting point of both claims lies upon the subject matter in question, and that is the alleged $500,000. I wish to draw your lordship's attention particularly to the source of the disputed sum, and it is rather apparent that the disputed sum served as payment of a capital gain tax resulting from the plaintiff's participation in a so-called investment scheme with a man who she later realized was actually a fraudster. But in short, the so-called investment scheme will fall under lotteries. So I wish to draw your Lordship's attention particularly to Lord Tolson's formulation here as regard to the relevance of illegality to and